Okay, I published my second role-playing game. The first game, Dark Age of Man book. We also have a 2061 kind of a simple one-page RPG. But Dark Age of Man, of course, was co-designed, co-developed, co-authored with Del Branham, and we had lots of members of the community playtest and share ideas, feedback, editing, book layout, and artists. That was a big boy. Took us 4 years. This was my own game, a game that I'd been working on for years, set it aside and pulled it back. And when I was working on my sports games, I also wanted to go ahead and finish this and publish this. So this is Man v Beast. It is a D20 fantasy RPG. It is all you need to play the game is this single D20, and you roll under whatever the action is, whatever the challenge is. If I say make a dex check, you roll under your dexterity. If I say, you're going to roll a combat attack against a creature, you got to roll under their defense, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to be running this. This is something that I play tested years and years ago. Not obviously completed, but play tested some ideas with my local group years ago. I did all my play testing solitaire for all the math and how the game functions. It's not meant to be a solitaire game, but it can play beautifully as a solitaire game. But I didn't play test this with other humans. The role-playing portion is role-playing. What I was working out was the math, and that was the most important piece of this. So for those who are playing a Wednesday night, so I'll be debuting this really publicly. The game book has been out for months. It came out this year, months ago, on Lulu, $9.99, right? It was in a saddle stitched comic book size, and then I decided to reformat it and make it into a traditional book, and I like this a lot better, and glossy. It's much nicer. Okay, and of course with that change, I had fixed some stuff I had left out of the book or messed up in the book, so I had made obviously some edits as well. Okay, but again, I will be running this for the first time with other human beings live. Well, not live, but Wednesday night. And I thought I'd go ahead and go through this, not just for them, but just for anybody who might want to watch that. I'm going to, as I always do when I run something new or I run something of our own, I generally, in session, don't have a problem with slowing down and teaching the game, or maybe doing something for those potentially watching that would understand how the game functions. Again, you can't get any easier than roll under whatever I tell you to roll, kind of thing, right? Okay. But what's the key things about this game? Well, it is traditional. The GM, it plays a traditional role in this, unlike Dark Age of Man, where we ask the GM to be a naive narrator. In this, it's traditional GM. GM pretty much sets the kind of game atmosphere and style, whether he's doing a story or whether he's doing an open sandbox or whatever. But it is designed purposely to be one session events. Literally, one of the rules is if your session ends and you are in the middle of something, or whenever you have to end the session, you're going to play it's designed to play 60 to 90 minute sessions, meant for one-offs. But if for some reason you play 4, whatever, it's your business. But if you set this, like Wednesday night, we're going to play 90 minutes. And if the game ends where it ends, that's it. Well, it's done. It is considered resolved. The loose ends are ignored. And next time you play those characters in the next session or the next chronicle or whatever, you just pick up in a different time and place. You might have been before that event, or it might have been later after that event. So think of like Conan. This might be before Conan's, the 3rd story of Conan. It might be in the 8th story of Conan. That kind of play, which means if they don't die, ultimately, then we assume they succeeded, even if they're in the middle of an epic combat and the session ends. When we pick up again later with the same group of characters, it's either going to have been something that hasn't happened yet, so we don't care that it wasn't resolved, or we can quickly assume that they resolved it, they survived somehow, right? Okay, so that's a key point of intent, because you cannot heal during session. There is no healing, there is no recovery during session. There is no leveling up. You choose an array of attribute numbers, you plug them in to create your warrior, you outfit your warrior, you name your warrior, and then we role play. and the GM sets the session, the scenarios, right? And why it's called Man versus Beast, because generally it's ultimately you're going to be probably in session dealing with beasts in these foreign fantasy, distant past setting. So we're talking about going back to 13,000 years ago. Civilization might have evolved to a point, but before there was something calamitous that reset civilization. So there is Bronze Age, there is sailing, there is a certain level of technology, but ultimately max think Bronze Age. But we're setting it back 12,000, 13,000 years. So, and it's fantastical, right? Okay. So they create a character by picking an array of numbers and applying them to their attributes, right? We have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, intuition, and influence. Those all also set up our secondary traits: melee damage, your ability to hit with missile weapons, your ability to defend yourself, the health of your character, and your constitution, your recovery number. So once you assign your attribute scores, those will dictate your melee damage, your missile to hit ability, your ability to defend yourself, your health, and your recovery, right? Then you name your character, kind of outline what they're like, etc. Then equipment is very simple. You get to choose one piece of equipment at the top here, and then whatever piece of equipment you choose at the top as your main piece of equipment, weapon generally, but you could choose armor. Then you can only pick as the second piece of equipment what is in that column. So if I chose axe, I have a bow, armor, or dagger as my second choice. So you could pick an axe with armor, an axe with a bow, or axe with a dagger. Then every character will have certain essentials: flint and tinder, water skin, clothes, sandal, boots, head covering, a pouch, a pack, a sack, torches, stone tool, knife, and a 20-foot hemp rope, or a star map for navigation. Right? Now, why is it done this way? Because whatever weapon pair you choose dictates your tactical advantage or in combat. So, for instance, a one-handed sword will give you +1 to your melee damage and also a -1 to your defense. So a sword by itself is pretty versatile weapon. An axe will give you a +1 damage, but it allows for me to carry a second weapon or a shield. A hammer does a lot of damage, but you must always go last in all combat. Right? A shield will give you a defense and allows you to use any one-handed weapon. So it just outlines kind of tactically. So when you create your warrior, you're also choosing kind of part of what is the makeup of your warrior. Your warrior is the kind of guy that carries a spear and a shield, and that's the makeup of your warrior. Does that mean you cannot use other weapons in game? No, of course you can find other weapons. You can actually eventually, pilfer other weapons, and you could be choosing to match up other stuff. You don't have to be stuck with just whatever you start with. All right. So what's the big difference in this? Well, you're rolling under. So if I say make a strength check, you got to roll under your strength. If I say if you're in melee, you need to roll under their defense. Let's say the defense of the creature is 7. You need to roll under that 5, and then you'll automatically do the melee damage minus the creature's armor soak. You will always do 1 point of damage no matter what the armor soak, but you can miss in melee. Melee is very simple. For me to hit the creature, we don't use their defense. We use my missile to hit. I need to roll under 15 to hit the creature with a bow. 19, I missed. So the creature's defense has nothing to do with my ability to put an arrow in it or to put a spear in it. But their defense definitely affects my ability to damage them in melee. And then, of course, melee damage, missile to hit damage is 1. Well, missile to hit tells you here what it does. Bows, slings, right, thrown weapons. They all have their own damage. All right, so... And then again, you would just give him his equipment, write it in, and then you would give a quick synopsis of your character, and we're ready to play. So, fate. So again, we create a warrior that's mature, professional. He's the kind of guy that his culture would send off to explore these areas, to take on these threats, to do these adventures. So we aren't thinking about how he's going to get better or worse or level up, etc. It's irrelevant, right? You're playing a character. That character is more than competent to do whatever we're doing in these sessions. But you get a fate point for every session you survive. However, you cannot bank fate points. So session 1, they'll start with no fate points. If they survive and we want to play another session later, they'll start that session with a fate point. And a fate point can be used at any time to automatically succeed any D20 check. So it's pretty basic. Keeps it simple, easy to use, for in-character as character play. Again, the design of this was I wanted people as simple as possible for us to resolve conflicts, actions, damage, etc. And they are free to describe the actions in combat, etc. Okay. Also, when you create a character, you automatically get a bagman or a non-player torch bearer as part of your main character. So you will make your character, and then you will always have a, not always, that person could be killed or lost or whatever. But you then create a main NPC that the GM will role play. You also get 2 soldiers for every player in the party. So you're going to go, so if you're playing with 4 people, you're going to have the 4 main characters, their 4 main NPCs, and they're going to have 8 soldiers. So that's going to be a pretty sizable entourage. Soldiers are minions. They're killed with 1 hit, so they're not worth much to you. They're almost like extra hit points, right? But you can command them to attack targets or to go find firewood or to go investigate that pool over there, right? So they're soldiers to this group of leaders. So all player characters are heroes and leaders. They have, in a way, resources that they can give orders to and do things with. Their main NPC is usually greater than that. He cannot be a combatant, but that NPC is the one who sets camp, cooks dinner, forages, makes sense of some star map or whatever. You can use them in innumerable ways, but the GM plays those characters. The soldiers are ultimately going to be, you just give them an order and you use them, right? Okay. So that's part of it. When you create a character, you also have a Batman and 2 soldiers, right, for the party. Okay. Okay, what else? The big thing here is, let's get over to game mechanics. There's advantage and disadvantage. Advantage and disadvantage is simple. If you have advantage, you roll to hit. If I automatically hit and I have advantage, I don't roll again. I hit. That's it. So I made it. But let's say I had advantage and I missed. I get to re-roll it 1 time. Okay, I made it. Right. If I have disadvantage, I roll normally. If I fail, that's it. I don't have to roll again. I was already at disadvantage. But if I succeed, I got to roll over 1 time. And if I fail, right. So advantage allows you to re-roll. Ultimately, a re-roll if you failed. Disadvantage, obviously, if you succeed, you have to roll a 2nd time to confirm it, right? So it's pretty simple. If you already succeed, don't worry about it. If you fail, don't worry about rolling. So we also, what that does is it reduces the need to always roll a 2nd die, right? And there's no swing so much. We're going to pick it up and we're going to go again. Encounters, combat rounds, turns, and moments. The game happens in rounds, turns, and moments. So it's a round. A round is everybody's turn, and all turns are in moments. So it's very simple. If you choose to draw your weapon and attack a creature, that's your moment. You roll for your hit, and we move on to the next person, the next turn. They do their moment, the next person does their moment, the enemy creatures do their moments, and then we conclude a round. That's pretty simple. Initiative. So what is also unique about Man vs. Beast is you roll initiative for every single encounter. So let's say they're in a small village and they see a stall, somebody selling vegetables, and it looks like general items, and one of the characters in the group lost his pack in a boat accident where his boat flips and he lost his gear and he wants to go over and negotiate. Before we even start talking, we roll initiative. Right, and this initiative carries through the entire scene, right, for both sides. And this initiative carries on if it would go into combat. So let's say you're negotiating with a pirate. Before it starts, we roll initiative. This who gets to start the conversation. This conversation, if it degrades into combat, we stay with the same initiative. So you need to roll initiative before any encounter. That initiative then carries over. So I get the upper hand to speak first as the king. If we roll initiative and I'm the chief of this tribe, and I roll the lowest number, and again, initiative is lowest win. So I roll a 2. Let's say the party rolls a 9. As the chief, I get to set the tone. I get to make the demand first. And then, of course, we're going to communicate. They can agree. They can come to an obligation. There might be some tests of influence, tests of intelligence, or whatever if we have this debate. It could also degrade into combat, and then we just stay with the same initiative into combat. So initiative is something that is done before all encounters, right? Okay. Next up, what else is unique here? Combat actions. Again, ranged only occurs outside of melee, and it only occurs on the first round. So if we're engaging in a fight on boats, then it's always going to be ranged unless the boats collide and we end up engaging in melee. Once melee begins, there is no more ranged. Creatures create melee as they... So flying creatures, for instance, create melee attacks as they swoop in. So let's say we're in melee and it's a flying creature. You would assume that it circles, flies away, and then comes down and attacks again in melee. And it can fly up and away, right? But the players at that point are in melee, right? But prior to engaging in round 2, which is generally going to be melee, they can use ranged weapons. If they're at a distance, like across a ravine, then it's always ranged. If they're on boats and something's on the shore, it's ranged, right? It only becomes melee when they finally get in range. So range technically is a first round option. Second round is always melee from that point. Even creatures that are flying around and using breath weapons, etc., they're considered missile attacks, but the players would get an attack at them as we assume the creature flies in for melee range. That's where they're still using melee weapons, okay? But a dragon might swoop in, fly around, launch a breath weapon, and then for them to have their melee attack, it's assumed the creature comes down, right, for whatever reason, right? So if you were to make a positive melee attack upon a dragon, then we would narrate that the dragon swooped in to do something, and you were able to get a hit on it. It doesn't make any difference what the actual motivations of the dragon were there. Your successful hit dictates the dragon must have come into range. So we're narrating, right? Your melee attack makes the narration versus how did I hit him when they're flying around shooting us with breath weapons because it's a flying creature moving around. Okay. Melee attacks always occur in round 2 or between groups engaging in combat, where both sides can actually meet each other in close combat. The target to hit is always the equal to and below the defense. Okay, and there's no opposed checks. I do outline opposed checks here. We do not use opposed checks ever in this. We only use what's called improvised actions. Improvised actions, and we all know this as D&D guys, old D&D guys, when a player comes up with something that's just not in the rules. It's a melee attack, it's a missile attack, it's a casting attack, but there's always that guy that says, hey, can I kick over the table and spill the oil and cause a fire in the tavern? And you know, everybody stops and goes, I wonder how I do that. In my game, it's an improvised action. Yes, you can make your roll, and if it succeeds, then you get that thing, right? But improvised actions are what don't fall under melee or ranged attacks. Improvised actions can be all kinds, like leaping from a horse, or leaping from a building onto somebody, or leaping from a horse, right, etc., that kind of thing, improvised action. Movement is assumed, it is abstract, and it was all going to be theater of the mind. So this is designed for theater of the mind, no maps and minis. And so everything occurs in that theater of the mind as it will be described by the GM as far as distance, where they're at, what's going on, and then as players announce what they're doing, we cover that territory. Saves, again, always roll under, and a save can be a special chance of something to occur. It can be an attribute check. It can be a save versus poison, something like that. Opposed checks don't occur. All opposed checks, anytime something would be an opposed check, it becomes automatically an improvised action. What's an example of that, an opposed check? I want to wrestle. I don't have a weapon, but somebody comes into my tent and tries to stab me with a dagger, and I say I'm gonna wrestle the dagger away from the guy. That would be a strength. That would, in most games, that would be a strength versus strength opposed check. It's an improvised action in this game. You would make the roll. If you succeed, then you would twist the dagger away from the person, etc. Right? So you don't need an opposed check. Defensive fighting is an option in this. If you have a shield or a sword. So this is another reason why would I choose a sword over a shield, an axe? Because a sword allows for defensive fighting without a shield, or if you have a shield at all, you can be defensive fighting, and that creates disadvantage on anything that attempts to attack you in melee. Right? So that means any creature must roll. If it succeeds, it automatically must roll one more time to confirm it, right? So it's pretty effective choice, defense. Fighting retreat or flee. Again, you can choose to have a fighting retreat or flee based on dexterity saves. Those who succeed can successfully retreat or flee. Those who don't must stay another round and continue to fight. There is no healing. These are one-off adventures, and if you're playing a 4-hour session, this is why I recommend, this is designed for 1 hour to 2 hour play, because the odds over a long 4-hour session, your characters are going to be killed because you're going to lose health through the session. These are really, it doesn't matter if in my 90-minute session I also advance time 2 weeks. Your characters are ultimately fatigued, beat up, whatever. How we would explain it if we narrate that you've traveled, all the characters started in an in media res start and took a beating, and we still have another 80 minutes to play the game, and we narrate that they travel for two weeks to get to a location. They're still beat up, and and we can use that condition to also explain it was a rough 2 weeks of travel, right? So I don't have to say it's all because you were still nursing wounds. However, it makes sense. You could still be recovering from pretty serious wounds. But it could be that the travel to get there really took a toll on you. You weren't able to eat as well. You weren't right. So healing cannot occur in any way possible during session, only between sessions. Everybody fully heals between sessions. And then I just talk a little bit about the D20 system here for this game. The other big thing is recovery. If you are ever knocked to 0, you make a recovery check. If you make the recovery check, you basically stay on your feet at half your hit points and continue to fight. If you fail the recovery check, you are dead, right? Okay. All right, excuse me. If you make the recovery check, you're unconscious. And when you wake, you'll be at half your hit points, okay? Recovery for creatures, main creatures and main NPCs is a little more dangerous in that if a creature recovers, it continues to fight at half that current hit points. If you bring them down again and they make another recovery check, they continue to fight at half of those hit points. So epic battles with a creature, if they fail that recovery check, you killed the creature in the first time you brought them to 0. If not, these creatures can basically continue to stand and fight. Again, these aren't necessarily chopping off things. It might be abstractly seen as fatigue, right? So that's how the game consists of main creatures and NPCs and minions. Minions can only take 1 hit. Main creatures have recovery, and main creatures have a health just like heroes do. All right, and then there's a basic list of the types of creatures you might find. This is by no means every creature that would exist in your world, but you can use this as an example. For instance, we got a fish here. Well, I'm going to use giant fish. Well, I mean, yeah, I kind of decide between the two and create your own on the fly, right? A man mook, a man giant, right? Giant mammal can become whatever kind of mammal. Giant reptile can become whatever kind of reptile you might dream up. You can use this as a base idea, or you can create your own. So we don't need to have 400 creatures. We have the base set, and then you can use this to build off of, right? There is fear. So special abilities. There's mauling, ravaging. There's fear. There's 3 different grades of fear, A, B, and C. And poison. There's 3 different grades of poison, A, B, and C. Poison, they all have different effects upon play. And they do impact play pretty significantly. If you run into a creature that causes fear, and everybody saves versus fear, depending on the level of fear they create, can really impact their condition, right? Equipment. Any creature with a special ability uses actual equipment and gear. This special ability is usually reserved for human cultures and humanoid creatures. This would be swords, shields used by mooks, soldiers, etc., etc. There's gaze, which is the most powerful special ability. Gaze. You get caught in a creature's gaze, whatever the result. If you fail that save, you're going to suffer it. You're going to suffer be turned to stone and killed instantly, or paralyzed, or hypnotized, or whatever, right? Okay, but gaze generally refers to something that can turn you to stone. As far as gaze here, you would be free to make a gaze that just hypnotizes somebody as a GM, right? A creature that hypnotizes. And then there's mauling and ravaging. Both are very vicious attacks that are special for creatures. Human beings, player characters cannot do any of these things. A player character could conceivably create fear through a influence check. A player character could conceivably create poison out of things around them, and then we would determine whether it's what kind of quality poison it is. Characters will never be able to use gaze, and of course, characters will never be able to maul or ravage. Those are special abilities for creatures that are extra dangerous. And that is pretty much it. I do give a short game master thing here. You're basically a traditional game master in this. Players are traditionally players. Hopefully we're going to get them in character as character. The game master is going to be more traditional in this, in that sense. And session prep, because I recommend these are built for 60 to 90 minute one-off sessions of fast, furious play, I suggest that you use, you kind of prepare some kind of outline, even if it's just the opening scene, the second scene, third scene, whatever, or you could certainly have a module or something from another game even that you want to use. And then, of course, I outlined that the best way to prepare for 60 to 90 minutes is to create a version of act, 2-act structure, 3-act structure, right? And then, you know, your 2-act structure would probably be 60 minutes or 2 45-minute acts that get you finished, or 3-act structure might be 3 30-minute kind of acts, right? That's if you're trying to time it out a little bit, right? Okay. And then I just give examples of my inspiration, examples of play, written dialogue, so people can see how the game functions in combat, how it functions when making rolls, initiative checks, etc. And I define here, MVP is theater of the mind, game, conversation, and details should reflect the abstraction that is shared vision by multiple players. The GM should communicate the important details of risk reward, life or death. However, do not sweat the minor miscommunication that can occur between players' vision of a scene and yours. Generally, it does not matter. This is not a tactical game. Your weaponry creates kind of a special ability in combat as far as a feeling of tactical combat, but the game is not tactical. MOB as a genre is swords and sandal, ancient history, that of a Conan-esque type era and settings. There are many cities, villages, civilizations that are many mysteries and dangers in the world. There might be magic, but it is the one thing the characters have no ability to control or understand. Magic would be viewed as a great unknown and a threat, and it should be. MVP gives the GM and the players a system and base rules to play liberally and enjoy mini sessions. So, what makes this unique? You create your warrior, competent, professional that is at his apex with by applying the array to the attributes you most want to have. Then you get their derived stats. Initiative occurs for every possible encounter for both sides. The GM rolls for the creatures, the players roll for their characters. We have no healing whatsoever during session. There is no way to heal or recover. Recovery can keep your character alive. Recovery can also make monsters instantly more dangerous, as when they recover, they continue to stay on their feet and fight. They can recover multiple times. Some creatures can recover multiple times. And there is the simple roll under D20 structure. So that gives you an idea what Man v Beast is. And you can see it's designed to be simple, effective, and has an intent to be something you can pick up and play in an evening's entertainment. Okay, thank you for watching. Good day.